founders, it's Christy Bareijsza, and I'm your catalyst to finding her. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Finding Her. Once again, here we are, and my name is Christy Bareijsza, and don't forget, I am not a therapist, I am not a psychologist, I am not even a life coach. I am just a girl in her mid-40s, late 40s, I know, that has experienced overwhelming changes that has led me to places I never thought I would be, both personally and professionally at this point in my life. But once again, here I am, and here we are. So, understand that my stories that I'm telling are mostly from my mistakes. And, with those mistakes, I usually continue to make more. So it's quite entertaining for all of us involved. And, these stories are from my perspective. So not only do they protect the innocent, they tend to protect the guilty too, but it's okay. It's all in good fun. And, the bottom line is I am just here as a catalyst for change. And, this experience and the creation of Finding Her is just about making you a better sister, mother, friend, lover, partner, colleague. And it's about growing yourselves because, founders, we are in it together and we're going to continue to make, some choices that aren't always the right choices. But when you have a community together and you have people together that really uplift you and inspire you and you can learn from one another, that's pretty fucking cool. So, and we do it in a way that's entertaining because that's all I know how to do. And it's a little bit messy at times, but it's all right. That's what makes us real. But anyway, we have talked about so many things from starting over to forgiveness, to accountability, to development, to building wealth, to branding, and we just went through expansion. And tonight we're going to talk about silencing the noise. So it's a really, really critical piece, and it's really important. And as you're going to see too, as you go through these steps with me, everything kind of ties into each other. And it's not necessarily about different aspects that are going to help you. Every aspect, every lesson is going to help you in one way, shape, or form. And that I think is really important. And as life, expands and you grow and you learn certain lessons or you repeat the same lessons more than once, those different elements are going to come back into your life in different ways, shapes, and forms. So it's not like it's just you go through one phase and it's gone. It'll just come back in different forms. But each time it comes back and each time you go through these different chapters in your life, you're going to be more well-equipped to move forward and be whole and mitigate the pain a lot more, but learn from the pain so it doesn't repeat itself, but also become a better you, because if you don't start with yourself, you can't do it for anybody else. So last week we talked about expansion. So I just want to go through really quickly the 6 kind of key points that we brought along, because as you know, I start with a key point and then I go on a whole road trip of conversation, stories, shit, all kinds of stuff. So I try to bring it home just so you know that there's a method to my madness, but sometimes you have to read through the lines. Okay. But anyway, the first thing is with expansion, it's opening doors through leveraging your network and trusting your path. So, learning how to network, doing it organically, doing it in a way that is genuine, not trying to blast out emails. Like it's about quality. It's not about quantity, and it's about connecting with someone, respecting their time where you can reach out and ask. It's a crazy idea. Just ask, are you available to talk about this? Are you available to chat? And also to get away from email, get away from text messaging. I mean, if you want to schedule time on a text message, that's totally fine, or an email. But the thing is, if you really want to make an impression and network and really build with that individual, face-to-face conversations are ideal. That's going to build a bond. That's going to set a foundation where people are going to be more willing to help. They're more engaged. They're more invested. They're more understanding what you need to do and where you need to go and how they can help. And it's about building a relationship. But knowing that if there's associations, who's on your contact list, all of that good stuff. It's just really, sometimes you forget who you know. And when you kind of do that research and do the work and see what's out there, that's super important in being able to go through it and understand that this person might be a really good advocate for the project that you're trying to expand on, whether it's personal, business, product, career, whatever the case is. So, number 2, understanding you will initially take 3 steps forward, but will end 2 steps back, which is, like I said, that Paul Abdul song comes in my head all the time. Opposites attract. But it's true. It's every journey, especially memorable, momentous one, is not going to be a direct line. It's like the turtle and the hare. I mean, it's you're not going to be running to the finish line. And even if you think that you are, sometimes things are cut short, and it's something that could be a project that lasted decades, but then it only ever lasted, a few years. And that's because the fact that you ran to the finish line versus kind of going through and really understanding what this is about, how you're expanding, where you are expanding, poking holes in what could potentially go wrong, so you're able to look at them from a clear perspective and strategize where you're able to kind of fill those liabilities or potential issues that could happen that are going to turn around and be able to help you succeed, and succeed in a way that it's a win situation, because you did the work to make sure that you are expanding in a way that has built a solid ground. And that's something that's critical. As I also use the analogy of a tree. When you build a tree and you've got the solid bark and the roots are in the ground, that tree grows. And from that tree and that trunk, you then get the branches, then you get the leaves, and then you get the flowers. And that expansion comes slowly. And it's a solid way to build, and it's a solid way to expand. So it's one of those things where it's, maybe that year you didn't have a lot of rain, and the tree kind of withered a little bit, and then you have to give it more water. Maybe it needs more sunlight. Maybe it needs, the wind to come in, and there's just so many elements that could come in, and I'm just trying to paint a picture here, but the bottom line is when it's built from solid ground and built in a way that is well thought out, the probability of success is far greater, especially when you have people surrounded, with you in this project or this concept that are also helping for the best and highest good. Number 3, maintaining your focus on your goals and not being sidetracked. So social media will do that. Competition will do that. The rush to the finish line will do that. Thinking frivolously will do that. There's a number of things that will do that, where they are just not for the best and highest good for the project. So I keep saying that because it's a great way to say the project needs to be at a certain level. And when you start cutting corners and you start doing things that others might be doing that aren't really genuine to what you want to do and genuine to what you're trying to achieve, it'll get diluted. So when it gets diluted, you tend to lose the impact of it all. And that's something that's really important. And also too, social media can be really a big distraction where you're worried about what others are doing, and everybody has their own path. So when you have your own path and you have your own goals and you have your own kind of concepts or the next steps that you're trying to take, you want to do that in a way that is just focused on you and keep it to you. I mean, yes, you have your colleagues, you have your trusted advisors, you have people that you're working with maybe on that project, where, if it's partners, whatever the case is. But whoever, you don't have to tell everybody what you're doing. Real G's move in silence like lasagna. So we're quoting Lil Wayne again, and I'm good with that. So just don't forget that, because that is what's going to keep you focused on your goal and where you are and the pillars that are surrounded by it, and keep this a success. Number 4, mitigating the fear of the unknown and accepting that some mistakes will be made. Now, I went into that in the last episode with finding her. I mean, I was fear of being seen, fear of being vulnerable, fear of launching something that I am not familiar with. I can launch an event in my sleep. Absolutely. Super easy to do. but I cannot launch something that, I've never done before without hesitation, without concerns, without understanding how to forecast it and the impact of it, positive and negative. There's so many different just factors that come into play when you're looking at something that is not very comfortable, or something that is unknown, or something that is out of your comfort zone, in the sense of you're expanding to the next level. And, not being safe is okay, though. It's absolutely okay, because it's how you grow, it's how you learn, it's how you expand, it's how you get to the next level. And you don't want to sit on the plateau. Life is about taking risks and taking challenges, but doing it in a way that's more calculated, because a lot of times time, money, health, everything is involved. So you want to be cognizant of that, and obviously take care of yourself and be smart and work smarter versus working harder. Number 5, realizing the climb to the top is not a destination, but rather it's a journey. So we don't want to get to the peak very quickly. We want to climb that mountain that literally is a mountain that has different levels, where you climb and you think you're at the peak, and then there's a plateau. And then you climb even higher, because you might have another plateau there that might be a little bit smaller, but then you're able to climb a lot higher, because once you get to the top, the only way from the top is down. And that means that party's over. So we always want to keep climbing to the top. And, that party may be over in a positive way too, where maybe you designed a product, or you invented a product, or you have a company that has a service and you were able to sell the company because you've got this great exit strategy from the beginning. And if you do, then, hey, at the end of that is another. But it's really, when you don't think about it, you're not going down if you sell the company or sell the product, because if you're able to do that, that now affords you a new opportunity to go to the next level with whatever access that last project provided. And that access, meaning it could be a financial access, it could be a networking access, it could be a promotional, anything. It could be, different opportunity from the people that you've met working on that project. So there's just so many ways to expand beyond. So even though it's an ending to that chapter, it's the beginning of a new chapter, and that's something that's pretty cool. And then number 6, appreciating those that have helped support your journey and giving back. So you don't want to shit on the people that helped you, because the ones that you stepped on the way up are the ones that you're going to be climbing on to help you on the way down. And that's kind of a mentality that you always want to think about. And you just want to always be kind and be considerate and appreciate the help that's given at that moment. And like I've said, and I kind of went into detail in the last episode, is that not everyone is on the full journey with you. And you really have to understand that you have to do what's in your best interest and be selfish in a way that you're self-full, where you are able to understand that this relationship may have served a purpose for this moment, but it might not serve a purpose for the next moment. Because if you have relationships, or you have, people that you work with, or people that have helped you in the past that you do have a loyalty to, that could potentially be a liability, that could potentially hurt the next steps or the next phase of what your expansion are, you are going to have to cut ties. And it's not always black and white. It's not always something that's easy. It's not always something that's understood. And it's not always something that feels good. But the bottom line is that it has to be done. And that's part of your growth. And that's part of your expansion, is that decisions are not always easy, and that you have to look at something in a way that, is this going to help me get to the next step, or is it going to hurt me? And, the example that I've used is, celebrities, like a music celebrity back in the day that may have come from, a place where he had an entourage of 20 people, and he's made a lot of money, but then all of a sudden that money is just being sifted through supporting those 20 people. And next thing you know it, even though you're top on the charts and you're number one and a platinum selling artist, you're bankrupt. And you're bankrupt because you aren't able to, keep afloat from all the weight that has been weighing you down from those 20 people that are not providing, support in a way that is needed, whether it's emotional, physical, financial, any element of that support. So they're weighing you down, and then next thing you know it, you're in a bankruptcy court, and where are those 20 people? They're on to the next person that they're going to weigh down. So you have to understand the difference, and you have to understand how to appreciate it, how to give back, how to pay it forward, but then also understand how those relationships work, and don't demand and don't expect that just because you ask for help that someone's going to give you help, because that's not always the case either, because there's so many moving parts that come to it. So just really being cognizant of it and understanding what help looks like in that scenario and for you. But with not all choices being good, you have to really go on your gut feeling and really look at things from an outsider's perspective and take the emotion out of it, take the loyalty out of it, take the, sometimes too, you might have a childhood friend that you've been friends with for 20, 30, 40 years. And sometimes that relationship has to have an ending to it, and it sucks. But you have to do what's best for you, founders. You cannot be doing what's best for everyone else, because when you do what's best for yourself, everything else will fall into place, and some lessons need to be learned and by others too. And I'm not saying you're the one that's teaching that lesson, but there's choices that you make that have repercussions to choices for others. So there's a bit of a domino effect with that, but understanding that your journey is a very complicated one, and I'm never going to say it's easy. But if it's done in a different way of care, both from the people that are supporting you and the people that may have been hindering you, then it's done differently, and it's done in a solid foundation versus making decisions on quicksand. So you feel me? You follow me? Okay. That was expansion, but let's, dive into another topic that I've given a PC title to, which is silencing the noise, because it varies in so many different degrees and can be really, really difficult, depending on how you're influenced by people. And with that, a quote is coming. So ready? Let me clear my throat. So I quote, "The biggest life hack is becoming your own best friend. Everything is easier when you do," end quote. So let's talk about how to master silencing the noise, because sometimes you just have to be alone and be your own best friend to think clearly. And the second you're okay with that, it's the second, I was going to say shit shifts. It does. Things shift. Shit shifts. Same difference. You know what it is. So with silencing the noise, one of the first things that I think is such a critical aspect of it is deciphering through genuine support and increasing your confidence. So it kind of ties into the last element I discussed with expansion. There's a difference between people being supportive and people supporting their best interest is probably the best way to explain it. So when you really have to clear out the shit and clear out the crap. And if you have a friendship, a business relationship, any type of partnership that is not serving your best interest and you feel good about 80% of the time. And I'm going to say 80% because, listen, nothing is perfect. But I've always said if I can have 80% good and 20% challenging, I've won. I've absolutely won, because things aren't going to be perfect. Life happens, shit happens, challenges happen. Things sometimes go awry. People fight. There's arguments. There's disagreements. Whatever the case is, people say I agree to disagree, which whatever. I hate that word, but sometimes it just ends an argument. But sometimes it ends an argument and just shifts everything under the rug. It doesn't turn around and solve it, because you need to have a solution-driven situation. And that's the only way. And that solution could be that you are able to move forward, and whatever that offendable issue was that caused that argument or that problem or that question of that relationship can be fixed because it's something that is fixable. Sometimes it's not. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. It's not going to change. So if it's an offendable, issue that can't be fixed, sometimes it's better to let go of the friendship or the business partnership or the client or the partnership or the family member. It's okay. Because your mental health and your ability to feel good about yourself, you need to surround yourself with people that support that mission and support that end goal. And if these people are not supporting that, they got to go. And that's okay. Because not everybody, like I've said before, not everyone is in it to help. There's some people that are in it to teach you a lesson. And you either learn the lesson or that lesson comes back over and over again. So obviously the goal is to learn that lesson pretty quickly and learn it in a way that is more successful, where you can feel good about it, understand that it's growth, and move on to the next, phase of your life, or the next chapter. But with that, it's just knowing that not everyone is great for you. And I don't want you to get paranoid about it either. It's a gut feeling. And that little voice inside is telling you so much more. And when if that person's calling you and you're like, oh, I don't want to pick up the phone, that's a sign. Or, that person's always complaining about what you do, or you're never good enough, or you don't feel good about things, or they're making mistakes. Like that's a sign. But that's also different than someone who's going to say to you, hey, you know what? I've noticed you've been drinking every single day of your life. And this last year, it's been the point where I am very concerned about you as a friend, that I think you have a problem. That is a different friend. That's something that you might not want to hear because you're in it and you're not seeing what it is. But that person is really, truly concerned about you in a way that is genuine, in a way that they're looking to help you through a challenging point of your life that you might not be willing to see or unwilling to see. Because a lot of times when situations like that happen, one of the individuals in the party of 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, is in denial. And that's part of life. And that's the case. And that's something that's different, because not everybody is always going to, you don't want to surround yourself with people that are yes men. And not everybody's going to agree with you all the time. And that's a good thing. You want a difference of opinion, but you want a respectable difference of opinion. And an understanding that you all have an end goal in that friendship, in that partnership, in that business, in that relationship, in that work environment, whatever the case is, that there's that end goal of what it is that creates happiness, and it creates fulfillment, and it's respect, and it creates a positive growth for everybody. So if they're not doing it, they got to go. That's it. Don't let the door hit them in the ass. And do it in a way, you don't have to have a fight. You don't have to do this. Like sometimes, and it's not like you're ghosting, but sometimes there's a conversation that can take place. Sometimes that conversation is not going to go well, meaning they're never going to see your point. And if they cannot see your point and you keep butting heads about it, you can dip your toe into it and see. And if you keep butting heads about it and understanding that you're just not on the same page, sometimes it is that agree to disagree, but agree to disagree in a way that you just stop and you just kind of move on. And also understand that if you move on a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, learn the lesson the first time, because that person is not going to change. Unless it was a situation that they went to rehab and they're great, and they've come back around and they've made amends and they've really, truly, organically, genuinely, authentically turned their life around, because that can happen. And sometimes that does happen after a monumentous experience, which is usually negative. You can revisit that relationship, but you revisit it in a way that you're very cautious, because if you start seeing the same elements that you saw the first time, you got to cut your losses, because you're going to learn a harsher lesson than you did the first time. And that's the thing that you need to do. Yes, there are second chances and people deserve second chances and things like that, but at varying degrees of second chances, and what entails around that second chance is the most critical thing that I can emphasize with that. So number 2, it's creating a judgment-free zone through setting emotional and physical boundaries. So I will always say, I'm an Aquarius. You can tell me anything. You can tell me something you did that could be the worst thing in the world, and I'm like, okay, good to know. Let's figure out how to fix it. Because I am someone that can compartmentalize things very, very well. I am someone that's always handled pressure and stress very well. It's part of my profession. I am also someone who forecasts, mitigates damages, and thinks often from all perspectives. So when I make a decision, it's kind of part of what I do for a living, but it's also something that I've always been good at. When there's an issue, I can see the opposing side's point of view, I can see my own side's point of view, and I can see the middle side, whether it's a venue, whether it's a vendor, whatever the case is. So what I tend to do is I look at all 3 angles, or sometimes 4 angles or 5 angles, depending on what it is, and how many people or how many elements are involved in it, how many businesses are involved in it. And with that, I can look at that and say, okay, how do I make this a win-win for everyone? Which not everybody's going to get what they want, but it's going to be a win-win in the sense of being balanced. So with that, I'm a bit unemotional too. So it's easier said than done, and I understand that. And a lot of times with people, there's an emotional weight involved, and there's a just kind of an investment that people will have, or a control element to it. So when you're at the point where you're explaining things or talking about things, or need to be in a place that you're expanding, and you may look differently than that person saw you the first time, not physically, emotionally, you need to make sure that that person's there supporting you. Because if they're trying to knock you back to that safe place that you were before, that's not that good place you need to be in, they got to go. They got to fucking go, and you got to set your boundaries and get rid of them. Because it's going to take you years of expensive therapy to learn that lesson. So learn it from me right now, where it's right here in this episode, and it's not costing you anything. If they are not supporting you in a way that is for your best and highest good, that they're not there for your long term, they are not there for your needs, they have exceeded their stay in your life. Okay, so meaning that you're going through the work, you're doing the work, maybe you're getting divorced, and this individual decides that you should stay with your husband, partner, whoever, for the kids, because they believe your kids are better with 2 parents. They got to go. Because that statement right then and there, they do not understand you. They do not understand your life. They do not understand your path and your journey and your fulfillment. Because if you want to get divorced and you are that unhappy in the current situation, you need to do it. And everything else will fall into place. Because if you do it right, you do it with respect, you do it from an authentic place, as much as the kids might not like that, and as much as your husband, partner, whatever the case is, won't like it because it's change, the outcome will be so much better. because you will be at peace. You will be happier. You will be in a position that maybe, it's a relationship that was a toxic relationship. And maybe you get to spend the next chapter of your life in a relationship that's a wonderful relationship, that's positive. You don't know. We don't know what the future is. But what we do know is if you do the work and heal yourself and do what's in the best interest to fulfill yourself and fulfill your needs in this short lifetime that we have, and do good and put good out there, it'll come back to you. I can guarantee. And it's not going to come back today or tomorrow. And trust me, listen, you'll get divorced and you'll be dating, and we have a whole episode on that one. You will be dating, you will be doing different things like that, where it's not like you're going to go through this and then the next man you meet is going to be Mr. Right or Mr. Wonderful, or the next female you meet. Whatever the case is, it might not happen. It could, but it might not happen. But the thing is, it's taking you to that next step. And it's what we talk about, where you might have 2 steps forward and then you have 3 steps back. And those are the things that you just have to keep that end goal in mind. But you also have to understand that if your friend or your colleague or your family member or your daughter or mother, anyone is not supporting you in decisions that you're making that are the right decisions for you and done with a clear conscience and a clear mind, they got to go. And you have to set those boundaries, because that is just going to drag you back, and that is not where you want to be, and that is not okay. And it sucks, and it's not great, because you know what? Sometimes you lose friends. Like I've lost friends that I thought were cool, and I was enjoying hanging out with them, and things weren't perfect, but I was like, they're fun. And I'm good with fun right now. And I'm good with, because in different parts of your life, you don't always need to have these weighted long-term friendships. Like the friendships that I have growing up as a child and in college that I've made are different friendships that I have than when I was an adult. And they have different meanings to them. They have different levels of growth to them at different parts of your lives. And that's the thing. If, sometimes with new friendships, they could serve just a short-term purpose. And that's okay. Because not every person that you meet needs to be in your life the rest of your life. And not every family member that you have is a good person or is really caring about your best and highest interest. And that's the thing. So people are real. People are faulted. So it's like, we're not put on this earth to be perfect. So you are going to get jealousy. You're going to get competition. You're going to get envy. You're going to get malice. There's things that you're going to get in your life, and it's not going to always come in the way that you think it's going to look and how it's going to sound and how it's going to be presented. So if you don't know and you get that feeling inside, or you see that and you have that energy of like, I can't even deal with this person right now. I don't want, cut them off. It's okay, because it's your job to do it. It's not their job to do it. It's your job to do that. And if you do that, it's going to help you grow, and it's going to help you get to the next steps of where you need to be in your emotional, physical, career, business, whatever growth path you're on. That's where you need to look at what it is and how critical it is, because, you're floating right now. And you're floating into the next chapter of your life. Are you going to float with a life raft, or are you going to float with a bunch of weights on your ankles? So just if you think about it in that way and kind of use that analogy, if there's someone causing weight, and I'll tell you, you can feel it. If you are in touch with yourself and in touch with your mind and your spirit and your energy, someone that is bringing weight and causing problems, you can fucking feel that shit without even knowing. And you need to trust it, because you'll be anxious, you'll be tired, you'll be exhausted, you'll be irritable, you'll be in all these kind of moods and feelings, or just even to the point where you're just like, I don't want to do this. And the second you feel that, there's your answer. So when that answer is presented to you, believe it. Because if you don't, it's going to come back. It's going to haunt you again in another form. So I know I repeat myself over that over and over and over again. But the bottom line is that you will feel it. And yes, you're going to be upset about hurting their feelings. And yes, it might be a contentious breakup, whether it's a friend breakup or it's a relationship breakup. Whatever it is, you're better off by yourself. Because if that weight is dragging you down and you can physically feel it and emotionally feel it and mentally feel it, you've got your answer. And you don't even need to look further. And when the universe, God, whatever you believe in, shows you the truth, believe it. So create those boundaries and stick to them. And that's another thing. When you create those, you need to stick them. You cannot go back, because it's just going to take your path back. It's just going to take you what you've learned and how you've grown and push you back, a couple steps. And that's not what we want to do. We want to make sure that you are just growing as a person, and that's what we all want to do, because this life is short. And that's our goal, is to have that fulfillment, to have, that life that you look back on and say, you know what? I was surrounded by people that supported me, that loved me, that cheered me on, that picked me up when I fell. And it was a pretty great life. And that's only done when you edit the bullshit out. So that's what you got to do. And the next one, completely eliminating frenemies, gossip, and negative comments. If they're talking shit about someone else to you, they are talking shit about you to someone else. And, I had that experience recently too, where I like to give the benefit of the doubt to people. I am someone that I also, I play dumb. There's my secret. I like to play dumb, because when I play dumb and people think that they are smarter than me, or that they think that they are quicker, faster, whatever the case is, it saves me time. And that's in dating, that's in friendships, that's in business relationships. Because for me, if I sit back, say nothing, and watch, it saves me the time of potentially something taking 6 months to rear its ugly head to 6 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 days. And it's something that I think is just so critical. And I've noticed it when I've lived in smaller cities or smaller towns. It's one of those things where I think when people are bored, a lot of that happens, and that boredom comes from not having a fulfilled life or being unhappy with their certain circumstance. So when people are unhappy, as I always say, hurt people. But sometimes it's in a way that's not necessarily hurtful, where you're not looking at it as hurt. If someone's gossiping about somebody, you're not looking at it as like, oh, that's something that's hurtful. To that person's in a shitty marriage and they're gossiping about the other one because they're deflecting. But honestly, that's what they're doing. And there's a lot of deflection in gossip. There's a lot in hidden sorrow in gossip. There's a lot of hidden disdain or misery in gossip. So wishing bad on someone else only shows you who that person is. And you got to eliminate that shit. And you just got to, and listen, we all love a good story. There's magazines built on gossip and things like that. But the bottom line is, be better than that. Just don't become the mean girl. Don't be that person that engages in it. And because you can stop. Listen, there's one thing to talk about somebody that you love, that you're genuinely concerned for, that you want to help, and you're looking for advice from someone else that is equally an advocate for that person, or someone that has been through an experience that's been similar, that really understands the big picture. If they do and they understand that, then that's a conversation. A conversation is different than gossip. Gossip is exactly what it is. And it's usually petty. It's usually nasty. It's usually putting somebody in a negative life. And a lot of times it might not be 100% true. And if it's not any of that, then that's you don't need that. You need to not involve yourself because you have so many other great things that are happening for you, and you're building on and expanding and doing so many better things that it's gonna come to a head. So I have this story that's actually a funny story that happened in my building. And we'll call her Jamie. And, for me, because I sell, when I first moved here, and I will say, after living in New York, Miami, LA, briefly outside of San Francisco, and now here in Dallas, as much as Dallas is a big city by population and by size, I've noticed that it's run in kind of smaller circles, and especially in New York City, you're one of 8 million, or I don't know if it's 10 million now, but as much as I've made an impact in New York City, I've always loved the fact that I'm one of millions. I just like it. And also, too, I grew up in a town that was 20 minutes outside of New York City, where there's about 10,000 people in the town. I graduated high school with just over 100 kids. I've had the experience where I've been one of millions, but I've also had the experience of everyone knowing everything, from your family to getting in trouble on one side of town, and by the time you got home a mile later, your parents already knew. So it's I understand all perspectives of it, and I see all sides of it. And I also see all advantages to it, because having a small town to grow up in and having those core friendships and different relationships and feeling safe as I grew up in Pompton Lakes, that there's a lot of value to it. But there's also a lot of value of having the opportunity to be in a more competitive environment, learning street smarts, learning how to be self-sufficient, learning how to fight in a city, and fight meaning fight for yourself and get ahead in a way that you're more prepared, whether it's education, whether it's networking, whether it's positioning yourself in a way that is going to get you to the next level, which is great too. So with that, moving to Dallas, and moving to a building that, the female community was definitely different than I had experienced in other larger buildings, where I really hadn't seen the Mean Girls in a long time. And I thought that shit was fucking hilarious, to the point where everybody was about image, and everybody was about who they were, not who they are. And who they were is not who they are, which is something I will always say. Your past life isn't who you are right now. It is part of who you are, and it's helped mold who you are, but it's not who you are. And to continue to live in the past is counterproductive for anybody, and to continue to live in a way that I had this, I had that, because I can guarantee when you had all of that stuff at that moment, you weren't fucking happy and you were fucking miserable. And that's why you keep relating back to that, and you're in a position now where you feel like instead of owning that and building on it and building yourself, you're trying to recreate something that wasn't solid to begin with, wasn't stable, wasn't healthy, wasn't anything that was any of those things that were long-term. Because if they, you could be miserable long-term your entire life, but, and that's a choice, but it wasn't anything that had sustainability and was positive in your life, because if it was, and you cared for it and maintained it, and both parties felt that same way, it would have lasted. But it didn't, and that's okay, because mistakes are made because we're supposed to learn. But with those, you're supposed to remain present. And you're not supposed to judge others, because everybody has their own path and everybody has their own story. And sometimes those stories change for what really happened and what you thought happened, and that's part of it too. But when I started meeting some of these individuals, I remember I did say something where I met 4 of them, and they are all trying to one-up each other. And the funny part about it is they believe their own hype. And I remember I said something about a discount or a coupon. because I live by that. And I don't care if I have $1 billion in my bank account, I will use a fucking coupon. And I've talked about this before because I am smart about money. I am smart about the way that I earn my money, and I'm going to keep my money. Keep it in a way where I'm not, we've talked about money flows in and out, but keep it in a way that I'm not going to spend frivolously because it is hard-earned money, and I appreciate the time and the effort that's gone into it, and I'm going to use it in that same manner. When I said that, I just absolutely, I don't know what I said, something about the effect of, oh, they've got this great deal here, or whatever the case is. Can I tell you, these 4 women turned their back on me, physically turned their back on me. And I started laughing. And I know founders, you've had this happen to you before, and they're mean, and you've been upset by it, or you've been, it's made you feel insecure. It's kind of like sitting at the lunchroom table and you going to sit down and, you know, the mean girl saying, you can't sit here. And you know what? It still happens in adult life. And to me, that became funny. Because I will say, you know what, listen, I was on the cheerleading team, I was on the dance team, I was captain of cheerleading. Like I did okay. You know, I mean, I'm sure some people will call me a bitch. But hey, aren't we all at some point in our lives? But the thing is, I always was nice to people. And the friendships that I have now, especially growing up, and whether there's a popularity or whatever the case was, I was always friends with people because of who they were, not what they could do for me. And I think regardless of whether they liked me or not, or thought I was bitchy or whatever the case was, because especially when you're growing up, you know, it's especially being a teenager, there's so many different factors that come into place. What anybody can say about me, whether or not they liked me or not, was that if we were friends, it was a genuine friendship, and I was a good friend. And I gave good advice, and I supported where I can, and I did what I can based on my abilities. And you know what? That means more to me than anything else. Doesn't mean I have to be popular, doesn't mean you have to be a cheerleader, doesn't mean you have to be any of that shit. But what I am saying is when they pulled that shit, I am confident enough in myself, and I am confident enough in who I am to be like, I don't want friends like that. And these women are just terrible. And I don't knock them, and I don't knock women, but I do knock the mean girl mentality, and I do knock the pack, because that's not okay. And that is not okay to treat each other like that, whether it's a female, male, whatever the case is. That is not okay, and I don't tolerate it. But depending on my location, because that's another thing. You know, different parts of the country require different responses. In New York, I would have responded much different. In LA, I would have responded much different. In Texas, I just laughed. And I walked away because, to be honest with you, these are not people I want to be friends with. I will be nice, I will be cordial, but I also know that they're not for my best and highest good. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay because I've even caught them talking about, I've heard gossip come back around through other outlets when I don't even engage in it. That has come back to me. And after they did that, I laughed because it's, I don't care. Like, and it's not that I don't care about people, but I don't, like, if the negative energy is there and they're just being mean and they're just not being nice, it's okay. I mean, and they've even gone to the point where even though I don't engage, and that's another thing too, what you have to learn is that even if you don't engage, they're still going to talk about you. They're still going to do stuff. And you know what? You just have to take it as a compliment, because I've even heard firsthand, I've had gossip come back about me. Now, mind you, I am not friends with these people. I haven't talked to them. I've had one interaction with them. They know nothing about my life that is genuine other than what they think that they can find on Instagram or TikTok, or what they see out there, or how I interact with the dogs, or how I interact with other people is where this quote unquote gossip's coming, or how I run my business. And the gossip has gotten to the point where it's gotten back to me, and I could address it or I could participate in it. And to be honest with you, I'm better than that because I am evolved. And what you have to look at these mean girls is just they're not evolved and they're not happy. So they're going to deflect on that, ability to be fake happy because they're just compensating for what is not fulfilling in their lives or the disappointment or that there's a jealousy or an envy that you are fulfilled. And you have to look at things that way. Because even to the point where I had one of the mean girls try to affect my business. And it's ironic because when I first met her, she had a style business that she was calling a business. And she had been recently divorced. And, part of what she was saying was her husband didn't respect her. This wasn't really a business. He would make fun of her. And, because he was in the healthcare profession and she was someone that wanted to be a stylist and this was more frivolous and it wasn't a business. So, my first thought in that is, as a woman who's been in business for decades, and also comes from the corporate realm and also is educated, that how can I support her? In numbers of ways. And the first way would have been, and what I did was emotionally saying, hey, you know what? You got to silence that noise. You got to listen to yourself. This is something that you want to do. You have to plan for it. And number two was supporting her in a way that, the business that she said she had wasn't a business. Like putting your business name on a license plate is not a business. Opening an LLC, creating income, creating a website, building a brand, having a bank account, having physical investments into that business is a business. Having a list of services, having all of these needs that create a business, having a business plan, whatever the case is. Even from the very start, just saying you're in business isn't a business. So my second step was to create and validate the business because she needed tangible services to be applied to what she was offering, where it wasn't just like, oh, I do this, I do that, oh, I do this, this is what I have an Instagram, and this is who I am. It's like, no, just because you do a reel doesn't mean that that's a real business. So I was willing to help her with the tools as well as support her emotionally, not even knowing her and not knowing what kind of person she was. It's just something that I do because I am also a person and I am a woman that I have been helped when I came into my own business, and I've made mistakes. But even when I started my own business, I was a child of an entrepreneur, and I was also someone who would ask for help from other people who own businesses so I could better understand where I need to be and where I need to go. And to be honest with you, even decades later, there's still growth that I need to participate in with my business and expansion and things like that. So it's never ending. And there are also things that I could do better. I was fortunate enough in the pandemic that I was able to take a good 2 years to focus on it, and it helped substantially and tremendously. But there's still more to do. And there's still a lot more to get done that I would love to do. So it's always a work in progress. And that's the great thing about it. You never get bored. And you never have anything, you're never at a point in your life when you own a business that you're like, oh, I have nothing to do today. There's always something to do with that business. But I digress. So I help her with this. For some reason, she decides, my take is, Jamie decides that this is too real for her. That she doesn't like hearing this because I'm now dosing her a splash of reality versus this fantasy that she's living in. So, or maybe potentially creating doubt that this could not work. And it's not going to work because it's not built on solid ground. It's built on quicksand. So instead of looking at that and taking accountability for her actions and taking accountability that she has to do more work to get this done, or really kind of researching and educating herself in the services she needs to offer and how is she going to make money, where her client base is going to be, who's our demographic, whatever the case is. I can go on and on and on about this. she decides she's not going to be friends with me anymore. But not only is she not going to be friends with me anymore, I was approached by another resident about a piece of business that I was willing to help her with. And it was a smaller piece of business that I don't normally engage in. It's not really in my core services. But I was willing to do it because, you know what, she asked me, she reached out to me. And also I come from an understanding that it is you never know where things are going to lead. You never know who you're going to meet. And also for me, when I do events, that's my best kind of advertisement. Because if someone attends it, they're going to understand what I do because I sell an intangible service. So they're going to understand what I do. They're going to understand, you know, the difference between my event and somebody else's. They're going to have that full sensory experience. They're going to really, truly engage in, you know, what makes red carpet different than everybody else. So I'm always like, you know what? I'm open to it. Let's do it. Next thing you know it, me not even saying anything and just moving forward like I normally do and moving forward with this new client. Next thing you know it, I'm going to fast forward and make the story a little bit shorter, is the client ghosts me. So I found it very odd because I had great relationships, like in great conversations with this client where love the concept, love the design, we're pulling stuff together, we're getting answers. And, you know, and I did things backwards because I normally send out a contract, get a deposit, but because she lived in the building, I just extended the courtesy, which I don't do anymore. And with that, next thing you know it, I just don't hear from the client anymore out of nowhere. And there was no reason for that to even occur. So I let it be. But I also kind of make a point without saying a point. So I actually sent the client an invoice, or a former client, I should say, at that point, because even though we did not have a contract, what that message sends is that even though I don't sell a tangible service where you can't feel it, touch it, taste it, drive it, whatever, I did use my time and my expertise, and there is a value to that. And I serviced what you needed, which you have a copy of what I did. So you actually do have some tangible items where you could take that element that we discussed and give it to somebody else. They're not going to produce it the way I do it, and they're not going to do it even close to how my expertise entails. But you know what? You could take that work that was done and give it to somebody else. And unfortunately, in my world, with creative, I don't have any recourse at all. There's no recourse for that. Because like I said, they can change the color from pink to green, and then all of a sudden it's no longer my idea. It's somebody else's. It's not proprietary, whatever the case is. So that happens. I send an invoice. She's not going to pay it. We know this. But it also sends a message that you don't ask people, especially in business, to do something unless you're moving forward. You don't waste people's time because time is money, time is valuable, and time is something that you can never get back. So, did I ever expect her to pay it? Absolutely not. But did it send a message? Absolutely. And for me, it's not a client that I would want anyway, because if you don't value my time and my expertise, then we're not a good match anyway, because it's just not going to be a positive experience for anyone. So that goes, 6 months pass, don't even think of anything else because I'm just like, something happened, is what it is. It was a small blip on my radar. By doing the right thing, you know, karma came in. I had gotten some high profile events with big budgets and some really, really great opportunities that come across my desk that I was focused on, and I'm good with that. And you know, I've learned the lesson too, and my lesson in that is, you know what, I'm not going to start a project unless I have a signed contract and a deposit, and moving forward, it is what it is. And, you know, it doesn't matter if it's my own relative, this is how it works. And that's it. So those were the lessons on my end. And you know, it wasn't a big lesson, but it's still a lesson, and it's an important lesson. And I move forward with that. Anyway, fast forward 6 months. I'm just in the elevator and I see one of the mean girls, the same one that I helped. And she starts asking me at like 7 o'clock in the morning, how's my business? So I had an inkling of what happened because I knew these two were friends, but she gave herself away. But I didn't give it to her because I was like, you know what? She's dumb enough to reveal who she is. Okay. But you know what? It's 7 a.m. I'm tired. Taking the dogs out. I'm not gonna play into this. So I go, oh, my business is great. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I played the game. I'm doing a lot of stuff. I've been super busy. I just did an event with the country of Wales, blah, 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 blah. That's, what I talk about. I let it go. 3 months later go by. How's your business? I was like, this bitch isn't going to give up. Start laughing again. I was like, wow, she doesn't know I'm from New Jersey. And I'm a confrontational person. So I'm just like, and I'm also thinking in my head, I'm like, you know what? For somebody that I helped without any reason, somebody that I lent services, somebody that I supported, this is their response to it. And not only is it that they tried to damage my reputation and they were successful in basically stopping a small piece of business, they want to glow in it, which speaks volume on what type of person this is. It really does. So then I let it go again. And then finally, 3 months later, so this is going on for a long time, she asked me again. So I was like, you know what? Welcome to New Jersey, play ball. So I turned around and asked her and I said, are you trying to get a rise? And I'm going to summarize my words because I use a lot of 4-letter words that you'll get a lot of beep, 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 beep with, because I am who I am. And honestly, I'm fucking tired of it. I'm tired of you trying to glow, and I'm tired of you trying to be a mean girl in a way that just proves what kind of person you are. And I turned around and I said, is this about insert client name here? Is that what you're trying to get at? And you're just not saying it, but trying to continue to say it? I said in more words way. In more, see, I'm getting riled up about it, so I can't even use my words right. In more words than one, that's the way I said it. Which turned into she decided that I had taken advantage of the client. I sent her an invoice. I didn't do any work. She tried to mitigate all the work that I did, which she was not privy to, nor is she privy to my expertise, nor is she privy to my time, nor is she privy to understanding, at least in my small experience with her in the beginning, what is entailed when running a business, the time, the effort, the work that goes into it. So she tried to mitigate all of that and defame my name, trash my name, and think that she won because she was able to, impact my revenue in some way, shape, or form, which, like I said, these mean girls, you got to silence this noise. So I basically turned around and said no. And then she started calling me names, which, of course, I'm not going to let that go. Then I told her how I really feel. And I'm really summarizing. Those that know this story, because I'll tell this story. If I ever see you one-on-one, I'll tell you the real story. And I say real in the sense of I will give you the word for word. But she's actually one of the reasons why I started this Finding Her movement. I should thank her because here's the thing. Women like that who live in glass houses, who are so concerned about what other people think, worry about the surface, like using, she's a stylist using fake goods. And because it's about that image, it's not about having a brand that's just valued or a quality. It's a surface kind of element that you're living life in a way that isn't genuine and isn't authentic and it isn't who you are. It's what you're portraying to everyone else to please them. And you're also not doing the work to build your own self to become an independent individual, meaning that I'm not saying you can't get married again. It's not saying that you can't be in a relationship again, but you're in a healthier relationship when you're building your own self-worth and your own self-value and your own self-independence and your own finances, where you become a partner to that next person and you're valuable and they bring value to you versus you being a dependent. Because that's all you are, is a dependent, like a child. And that shifts the power, that shifts your role in a relationship, and that shifts your sustainability in that relationship. And that's what happened. So when you come at me about this, and then we have this altercation, and then you proceed to make it worse. The funny part is it's all on camera. So, when you try to really defame me and say I did something I didn't and it's on camera, it's just, it shows people who you are. But instead of engaging in that, I said what I said. Because listen, I'll walk away. But sometimes you'll get that mood. And if I'm going, I got a mouth on me. I'm not going to lie. And it's fucking funny. It's fucking hilarious. If you've been in that elevator with me, you will laugh. And I'm glad you laugh. Because it's not, I'm not even mad about it. It's just, I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I'm good. Because being from the Northeast, that's what we do all the time. There's no passive aggressive. And I'm just not. But I'm also always trying to be respectful and civil of places, and where I live and what I do, because I want to be living in peace and be left alone. So she's never done it again to me, which proves my point. But I thank her because she created something for me that I didn't know was needed. Because I didn't think in this day and age, in 2024, that there was still women out there that did that and that use marriage as income or trash other women. And listen, nobody's perfect, but I didn't realize that nasty shit is still out there. And my answer to that problem is that I am a solution-driven person. And if that's out there, I got to fix it. So here I am. I'm going to fix this. And I'm going to fix it in a way that is productive. And I hope she's listening. And I hope that she sees this differently. Because this is not about me knocking her down to make me look better. It's about, I will say, it's about cutting it off from where it was going. Because sometimes you have to address things differently, and sometimes you have to address it where you're going to put a stop to it, because people do need to know your boundaries. And my boundary was that moment. I let it go, where she thought she was able to cross my boundaries. I was actually just being nice. I was being civil. I was letting her be smart enough to stop, and she wasn't. So, because she wasn't, she learned a new boundary. And apparently, after that altercation, apparently she was white as a ghost. So I've heard that hit home so hard because I spoke her reality and I saw her for who she really is. And it scared the shit out of her because she thought in her glass house, this is who I portray myself as. This is what people see me. I saw her as her own founder. She hasn't gotten to the point of being a founder, but I saw her for who her inside, outside, her soul, and what she stands for and what she does. So that's what caused the white as a ghost situation. But it was also a scenario where, it taught me a lesson and it taught her a lesson, and it built something so much greater than what it was. And, where my concern is too, is that a lot of these mean girls have daughters, and this toxic behavior is continuing through generations, and we got to stop that. So I'm doing it in a way that's productive. I'm doing it in a way that's solution-driven. And I'm doing it in a way that allows redemption. So we'll see. Anyway, so you got to eliminate those frenemies. You have to eliminate the gossip, those negative comments. And you got to do it in a way that's best for you. And sometimes it's not the best way to do it, but sometimes you got to get it stopped any way it does. And I'm okay with that. And, and I wasn't perfect. And and things that she did, I will say, some things that she did, I kind of fed into it. But I did it because I knew at that moment I had the upper hand, which is where I fall. And like I said, I'm not perfect. And sometimes I'm like, when I'm going, you wind me up and I'm going. But with that, it's interesting because she tried again a second time and actually tried to damage a weak friendship that I had. And it was interesting to me because I thought it was over. And where I thought it was over, she didn't think it was over. So she tried another way because she couldn't get to me because I was self-confident. She got to someone who was near me within the circle that didn't have confidence. She did. She acted from the outside. From the outside, she seemed very successful and things like that. But once again, a lot of glass houses. And there's a lot of insecurities that were deep down because she's not doing the work. You have to do the work to love yourself first. And it's so critical because if you don't do it, this is what happens. And a lot of times you're preyed on by others that know that they can get to you and they're not doing what's for your best and highest good. So she then turns around and gets to this other one who tries to not be my friend anymore, which was perfectly fine. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't have to have a friend all the time. I don't have to have this. I don't have to have that because I would rather have one good, authentic, real friend than 10 acquaintances. And that's how I feel about that. And a lot of people in my inner circle feel exactly the same way. And that's why we are who we are. And that's why, we might not all live in the same city, but we've got each other's backs no matter where we are. And that's the thing that I value more than anything else is not what you can do for me. It's who you are and how you show up in my life and how you support me in my life and how I support you and show up in your life. And that's so important. So she actually got to another one that was, insecure, and she saw those insecurities and ended that friendship. And I was okay with it because once again, like I said, when people show you who they are, you believe them. And the funny part was that this one that ended the friendship was ending the friendship with the hopes to be friends with that mean girl group. And the second she did what she did and ended that friendship, that mean girl group moved on and they left her high and dry in the cold. And I told her that. I was like, listen, I'm a real friend to you. She is not a real friend to you. You fell suit for the game. And you're going to lose. And you did. And you lost. And she lost in a way, not because you lost my friendship. She lost her cool. It was an embarrassing moment for her. She made a fool out of herself. And it for a grown woman to conduct herself in that type of way, that's a professional, that does, that's in a career that is one that reads people, that understands, personalities and tries to put them together. I'm sure she questioned a lot of things in her life. And that's good because it's a learning. And like I said, I hope she's here. I hope she's watching. I'm hoping that she sees where her accountability is and can move forward and work on herself to get through situations like that because we all make mistakes, and I've said that over and over again. We all make mistakes, but that was a mistake that was made that both of those individuals don't deserve a second chance with me in my life. But if they ever needed help, resources, things like that, that will be there. And that is available to them. So I'm not turning my back. I am not shutting it down. I'm just doing things in a different way where the message is still the same. The care is still the same, but the boundaries have been set that those boundaries will not take away from me. They will help them, but they're not going to, by helping them, it's not going to deplete my energy. It's not going to deplete my soul. It's not going to deplete my needs. So understanding that these kind of situations are not always so black and white, that they are a bit more gray, and that's it. And the same thing too, which is the next topic, is that, or the next segment, is that managing family relationships, you know, there are still those that cause emotional harm. You know, as much as I love a Hallmark or a Lifetime movie, it's just not what family is. And most families, I mean, you will get some families that are really, you know, not dysfunctional, but the vast majority of them, there's a lot of dysfunction internally, and things that look great from the outside are not always what are on the inside. So when they're not that, it's okay. And there's certain things that you have to do as far as with boundaries and things like that, where you have to be able to cut off those or love those from a distance that might not be for your best interest, and that's okay. And you have to get out of the understanding that this is what TV, this is what movies, this is what books tell me a family's supposed to look like, because that's not what that is. Those are that writer's impression of what an ideal family is. It doesn't mean that it's your family, and that's okay. And there's certain people that you need to love from a distance, and there's certain people that you need to kind of have, you know, different types of relationships with, and that's okay, because just because they're blood relatives doesn't mean that they get an open invitation to tear you down. So that's it. And, you know, eliminating repetitive and negative habits. Like, you do this shit once, don't keep doing it again. Like people show you who they are, believe them. You get in a situation like this, like I did, don't do it again. Like, don't just, you know, learn the lesson. Move on. Don't get sucked into the bullshit. Don't get sucked into the negative habit. Don't get sucked into, you know, we have a community here, founders. Our community is a community of learning, of working together, of expanding, of understanding mistakes are being made, of understanding how to get through them with shared experiences. That doesn't turn into petty bullshit. That doesn't turn into gossiping. I have zero tolerance for that. That doesn't turn into hate comments. That doesn't turn into trolling. What this needs to be is an open forum where we stay together, because, you know, I brought this up in another episode. You know, in the 70s with the ERA movement and the women's rights movement, that was the one time that I can remember that sticks out in my mind in 1977, that every woman, despite their different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different religions, different even platforms, they stuck together for a cause. That's what we need to do. It's simple. And the more negative noise you allow in there and don't silence, that's when it breaks up, where this person had a different experience, so their person's, this is worse, and that's worse, and this is different because this is south, and this is north, and this is east, this is west. There's so many commonalities to what our experiences are as women that we need to own that, and then own that bigger picture, and then dive in through that bigger picture to more of an understanding of where it affects you directly and how you can get through it directly. Because there are always going to be shared experiences, and there'll be shared experiences not by everyone, or there'll be shared experiences by everyone, but at different times in their lives, at different phases in their lives, and different situations that still led to the same outcome. So with that, you honor what that is, but you don't segregate it. So, you know, get away from those negative habits. And even too, I want to be clear, there's a difference between a negative comment and a disagreement or not agreeing with what I'm saying. You have every right to not agree with what I'm saying. I don't care. That's perfectly fine, because the great thing about this country, as I always say, you can say whatever the fuck you want. And that makes this great country wonderful, okay? Because you are allowed your own opinion, provided you're not harming anyone or damaging anyone or threatening anyone. And you are allowed to change your mind. It's a great thing. So, a good banter and a good, healthy debate is a wonderful thing, because it gets you to fucking think. And that's a great thing. So yeah, disagree with me. Yes, banter with me. I love that stuff. And it's not because I want to be right. I want to learn, because you may see something that I don't see, or I haven't learned yet. Listen, I'm not perfect. I've said that over and over and over again. I sound like a broken record, but that's the bottom line. And that's the thing. A debate is different, because a debate is done with respect. So just remember that, and remember those habits. And the last thing is developing an armor of protection by remaining genuine to your goals and self-worth. So as I always say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And they don't. It's, when people say shit about you, and it could be a generational thing. Like Gen X, we talk so much shit about each other as kids. And it was like lighthearted. It's just what we do. And especially in the East Coast, especially the Northeast, I should say, we talk shit. It's a love language for all of us. And and we're all confrontational just by region and just by the community you're raised in. So do I have a thicker armor than most? Probably. There's a good chance of it, and also, have I done the work with finding her to build even a thicker armor, to be confident in myself and confident in my own decisions and statements and impact and things like that? Absolutely. Can someone still get to me? Absolutely. Is it more often than not? No, usually it's not. And that's the great thing about it, is that it's, I don't know, I still, things will affect me, but they affect me differently because I look at them from a different perspective. You can still be hurt, but you're hurt in a way that you're like, shoot, I shouldn't have done that. Or shit, they shouldn't have done that. Or that's not cool. Or fuck, why did that happen? Or, ooh, I left myself open. I'm not going to do that again. And you learn that lesson from it. So that's the thing that makes the difference. And, you're not going to walk around and never be hurt again and never have your feelings hurt or never encounter someone that is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And you just need to see the signs, and you need to build your self-sufficiency enough where when you see it, believe it. Also, when it happens, believe it. And if it's an unforgivable offense, move on. So that's basically silencing the noise in a nutshell. So, it's a lot. And we can talk. I could talk about this for a long time. I got other stories for you guys. I got lots of fun stories. But, as I always ask, for questions, one of them that came in from our founders is, how do you break up with a friend that might not have your best interest in mind? And, we talked about it. And and I hate the feeling of ghosting someone, not talking to them. But, you have to you kind of have to play through the scenarios of what the issue was, what happened, and if you resolve it in different ways, how is it going to best protect you and your soul and your self-worth and your self-fulfillment? So if it's someone that you had a huge argument with and you guys just stopped talking, and it was an argument that that you're never going to resolve, and it wasn't a healthy argument, it's not a good friend, you feel like you're not going in the same direction, then you just let it be and you let it go. The other person isn't going to be your closure. Closure comes within. So having that closure is what you drive out of that situation. So having that last conversation it's not always going to give you closure. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't, but the closure really truly comes from yourself. And that kind of comes, like when we talked about forgiving. It's like, no matter what happens, you have to forgive yourself. You have to give yourself closure. It doesn't mean that you forget. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that you're not going to mourn the loss of that person in your life, because that person was in your life for a while, or maybe a short term, or, maybe they did impact you in a way that was memorable, good, bad, and different. But you can appreciate the good times, mourn the loss, and you move on. And that's it. I mean, you just have to do what's in the best interest for yourself, and but not be selfish about it. Like I said, you need to look at all sides of the scenario to see what's what, and how it got to that point. And is it something that is, and I mean, if you're breaking up with a friend, then it's something that isn't resolvable or repairable. So you've already come to those conclusions. So now it's accepting the fact that it can't be repaired, and how do you move forward, and what does that moving forward look like? I mean, that's the same thing with divorces. I mean, I had this conversation with, I'm going to call him James. And, James had a hard time, even though he was divorced and had been separated for over a year, living separately. And, my words of advice were to him that it's not about the separation anymore. You're divorced. How do you move forward? And how do you teach your children to have healthy relationships themselves? And how you do that is you lead by example. And what does that look like? And a healthy relationship isn't being alone the rest of your life because you're afraid to get in one because it's going to upset the children. That's not a healthy relationship. And, and some of that takes, family therapy. Some of that takes boundaries. Some of that takes examples. Some of that takes being a little bit selfish, where it's like, hey, I spent the last 20 years with someone that just happens to be your mother that I, wasn't a good fit. And it's okay because we've got 3, 5, whatever, 2 amazing, 1 amazing children out of it, that I was able to do that. And that's the great thing about this. But at this point, we're now starting a new chapter, where she's starting a new chapter, I'm starting a new chapter, and you guys are starting a new chapter, because life is going to look differently. And that's part of it, is understanding that you're resolving something that was negative at that moment. And resolving it in a way that's positive, and resolving it in a way that you're going to achieve the ability to move forward efficiently, genuinely, authentically. I know I keep repeating myself, but these are big fucking words that mean a lot, that stand for a lot, that are rare to come by. So with that breakup, with relationships, with friendships and things like that, you have to understand that your closure comes within, and it's about what the future looks like with or without that person, and how are you going to maneuver through it. So that's when you change your perspective on what that is, it'll become a little bit easier. It'll still be painful, because like I said, you mourn the loss, but it's less painful, and it's solution driven. So that is my answer to that question. And as we always close with a Charlieism, because Charlie is my father and loves to say inappropriate things. And I feel like he is the king of just doing his thing. I mean, that's where we were taught. I mean, self-confidence, and we were taught a lot of that stuff, because his famous words to all of us in his family are, you don't like it, too fucking bad. So that's the great thing. And it's the great way to say that, when you're trying to silence that fucking noise, if you don't like it, too fucking bad, because it's my life. It's my path. It's my journey. It's my chapters. It's mine. It's not yours to dictate what I'm doing. It is not yours to tell me how I can and can't do shit. It is mine, and if you don't like it, too fucking bad. And it's a great way to put it, because it's very simple. It hits home. It's a little bit harsh, but you know what? It's true. And it's good. Like I said, you know what? You're going to do what's best for you to keep you fulfilled. You're going to do what's best for your highest good. And when you do that, and you do that in a way that is authentic, everything else falls into place. And you'll be surprised how quickly it falls into place. And people fall in line quickly that really, truly got your back. And the ones that don't, they've done the work for you. They can go. Don't let the door hit you in the ass. But anyway, this was a long one, and this was a pretty hot topic, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of feedback, especially in Dallas. I wouldn't be surprised. But you know what? These are learning lessons together, and this is what we're doing. We're in it together, founders. So don't forget, if you've got questions, thoughts, ideas, want to tell me stories, you may have similar stories. I'm sure you do, because they're not that uncommon, and we are in it together. So definitely send me a DM at Finding Her the Show, or shoot me an email at standinformation.com. And of course, always, if you like this episode, repost it, like, follow, share, all that good stuff. That's what keeps us together, and that's what keeps Finding Her. So we'll see you next week. Bye.